Cassandre. Cassandre. Là. Chama-son. Zugu chama-son. All right, good morning. So we'll start with making a mandala offering for requesting the teaching, and then Geshe will lead the way with refuge and bodhicitta. Sa shi pu ki jun shi me to tam ri ram ling shi ni de gen pa di san ye shin du mi te o wa gi ro ku nam dam shin la chu pa idam guru ratna mandala kam niyatayami
Sanji
Chonan Tsogi Chonam La Chachu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chushigi Betonangi Drola Sensi Sangi Rupa Sho
Sanji
Chonan Tsogi Chonam La Chachu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chushigi Betonangi Drola Penchi Sangi Rupa Sho
Sanji
Chonan Tsogi Chonam La Chachu Badu Dani Kyasuchi Dagi Chushigi Betonangi Drola Penchi Sangi Rupa Sho
Kangi tuzi nizune tawa tamche pambi chere tambi shun dunze kodam tela chanse lo. Good morning, everyone. King Amma.
Hi Eli. Tashtele. How are you?
Last tangas dinam lojong nimi weser. Something ma shugi sirwa.
So we are looking at mind training like the rays of the sun, and we're going to pick up on where we left off in our previous session.
Terdatavig lojong dige tajojige nimbu rodi chanjugu sem dichagdos ra ta chanjugu sem di kandasin kiego do ani chanjugu sem la ya karso ta chanjugu sem gu tone ani chanju drobala ya ani thokda masuna karigo yeme odi ani lojong nimi wasano ya chanza chik songudos.
And as such, this text, the mind training text is, you can say, the essence of bodhicitta. The essence of this text is training a mind in training in bodhicitta. So first off, we'll look at the way for generating bodhicitta. How do we do that? And then how do we use the practice of bodhicitta in order to attain the state of enlightenment? So this is what this text is focusing on.
Tinzada benangan rojina ngema trasal de jawron chikundun sajik sonju chikshi mado tene mixe gyundeng paiji lo an tindi shara choma sons ine dellen da sar sumba suraj chagor dandi ngone tane pe maso yagbudos shonkabunga bi chigorada harchi omani ki tachik ne yonsun dude gyochik ro 아니 다지 쉬우지 빼자만 불러 이야기 두세 명이지 말나 안 디코란 로데나 디교로 저러 델 야니안 로바나 빼마서 약분도스 더 여대 용으로다 이내야 쉬우 약분도스로
Geshe received those teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama once. It's Sera Monastery. But it wasn't a text that Geshe focused on in his regular studies. He wasn't regularly reading through this text. But then having come here to Australia, to this center, Geshe have had the opportunity to go through this text 3 times. So this is the 3rd time. And this is a really good opportunity because first of all, when you study in the monastery, Sera Monastery, when you go through your studies, you study the 5 classics, the 5 philosophical systems, and of them, 2 of the texts that you study are Madhyamika and the perfection system. So all the key points are included within the extensive study of these 2 texts, Madhyamika and the perfections. But if you don't have the ability or the time to study those texts at such a great extent, we have here mind trainings like the rays of the sun. Is this text includes all these points in a succinct way. So as such, this is a really good text to study. If you have the opportunity to study this text, it's really good.
데레다 간주다 페나타사도엔다 숑카붕아 세치 다고르 숑카붕아 까붕아 숑카응아치 단 세만남젠디 주 직다 세미콜 다 리글람다디 세미콜다 세만남젠 순고라스 다디 디 쇼르라 응오니 직 당연지는 쇼르레데 유로식 되는 파친리스 파친기 다지 님보로디 잔주구 쌤 들어왔어. 잔주구 쌤 계속 돌려다 아니 파신디 셰인 거다. 현재 잔주구 쌤디 균제 맹아 둘 때니 쌤 종수 다진냠질 때니 쌤 종수 그 rum바니 로 조지반데 안데샤니 기버치다 야스치고 시월 기버치 다 rum바니 데니기 네데 디나 세우 쇼진 송여레스.
So as Geshe said, when you study in at Sera Monastery, you go through the 5 classics. So one of the texts that you go through is called the Pramana Vartika, the compendium or commentary to valid cognition. As such, not only you study Pramana, valid cognition, but also you train in logic. But that's on the side. One of the main things that you focus on is the perfection system, the Paramitayana. And the heart of this text is bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. And through that also you train in the 6 perfections. So then the topic that you cover when you go through this text that whose essence is bodhicitta is the 7-fold cause and effect personal instructions for developing bodhicitta and equalizing and exchanging self with others. The first system was laid out by Atisha in Islam for the path to enlightenment, and equalizing and exchanging self with others was highlighted by Shantideva in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. So the key points from this text are included here in this manual that we study now, mind training like the rays of the sun.
데르다 잔주구 쌤 잔주 되니기 삼바디 또기다 아니 된든 얘기 잔주 터버 제발이야 톡 되네 아니 동문이 또비 셔러야 땡고라 다디 의미숑 송고라스 의미숑 따고야 조디 동문이 또비 땡아레스 텐자 다 동문이 코디 디 멜야 제드 참부지 거네 아니 숑 비기게 즉 자와시를 쯧비 아니 숑 nenga chiri chetseti sudyubati dina dhanchini anin Geshe pe masiva yakbu gyavshas ro.
So you train in bodhicitta and you strive at enlightenment in the training of bodhicitta. And then you use that in order to assist the development of the view of emptiness. So when you study the Madhyamika system, the middle way system, you study emptiness, you train in developing the view of emptiness. So then looking at the extensive presentations and a more condensed presentation of the presentation of emptiness, we look at texts such as, for example, Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise on the middle way called Wisdom, and other presentations. So again, the key points form this text that teach the view of emptiness are also included here in mind training like the rays of the sun, and they're explained in a clear way.
Terda tang ngomba dan doha tang ngomba nyiri ngomba zu ta ani pigi sem chetaba tindi tolaya sungu yor zo chi thagye pongdang la soba ani jigden chazo la soba ani tendre yang la chungi tone pigi ani chi ani kowa ke dang rimba digide dan zo na besi orta dia ani dinang la ya ta yabuj ta shimba na ta tengudas teni ndwa di zo ani labdum songdang teres teni chi laba kichimbu kanda imi tolaya dina pe nenga chimbu tindi tengudos kanji ani di ani chabe di ken ro debaina so shad shole ya tatu baina ro kande mixi kande shemba tindi penachi 맞다 다겐도 양을 써봤다 계신부 쇼든지 캘린치어로다 두주 내가 조디 연거에 조디 잔주그셈 마기바 기바 네바 콘도 페야 아니 tomba니 마토보 비기 콘도 페야 다 딘리식 체드로스 로 델테네트네 아니 잔주 콤반디 고 낭기 드윙고야자 아니 다게된 거야 초거된 거야 균선 데려왔다. 더 디기 찬주고서도 tomba니 또비 세려려야 고지 때마도 와나 아니 다게 가수 때마이나야 템비 페요 잠마도 수수기 남주 이야기 드레스 카보베라스 다로 배션 디 아니 야 가두이는 디바체바나 야차 야탐바다 아니 디나나다 두스라 딘자 디치투라 샤로치스
So we've mentioned so far 3 of the 5 classics that you focus on and you study at the Great Monastery. Great Monastery like Sarah Monastery. So the 2 remaining texts are the text on Abhidhamma, which means the text on knowledge, and then the text on Vinaya. So when you study Abhidhamma, then you study topics such as the 12 links of dependent arising, the way that samsara is formed, the way that you enter into samsara, the way that samsara is left behind, the way that we go through cyclic existence. These topics are covered by the text on Abhidhamma. And then we have the text on Vinaya, which explains how we train in ethics. Anyway, these are the 5 classics that you study in the monastery. Now, when we take on this text of mind training, like the rays of the sun, and use it as a main manual for training a mind, we can use other texts or other things to supplement that. Like, for example, sometimes in our practice, in our personal practice, we have certain commitments that we need to recite. Like, for example, you might have taken upon yourself an empowerment, and thereby you have a self-generation sadhana that you need to recite. So it is important to keep those commitments. But what is the most important thing for us is to train in the development of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. As we say, what is important for us to do is to generate the mind of enlightenment if it hasn't been generated yet. And if it is generated, it has already been generated, to maintain it, to increase it more and more. And similarly, with the view of emptiness, to generate it if it has not been generated yet. And if it has been generated yet, to maintain it, to increase it more and more. So this is what we do in order to proceed towards the state of enlightenment. And as such, we use practices such as the self-generation practice, if we practice Tantra and so forth. But really without putting into practice bodhicitta and the mind of enlightenment, there would be not much benefit from doing a recitation of a self-generation sadhana. You might have the benefit of mere recitation, but in terms of expanding your mind, making your mind vast and extensive, without training in bodhicitta and emptiness, you will not get much out of it. Your text will not be, your mind will not be extended. So this text contains the key points that we need to take on in order to make our mind vast and extensive, to expand our mind. So Geshe is hoping that we will keep in mind the importance of this text.
Terdagi da lok penanta chi loma ringla ra loma ringla ngi pecha te bainza lama tsenden mambu dün ta sonju shu ra shonja mandragi pi chi chigyu longyu ani tsama lota shu le bainza ani teni da chi mele chi shegoras ta diru cheon digi ani shon di pe masiba teni 약부진 제송스 다치단 셴바다 슈 약부도 요르데냐 믹스기 단들로존 님이여서 디다 아니 장관놈 중고 준비기 송 라우름 진님보디 되는 건데 단내기 예드 상보 아니 가서 다지 냐스코스 메교
그러면요?
냐스 녀다 메교도스 아 비기 쯧바다 딘디 마부 슈저나 ngazu le tangbo go tru tru das din die mejo tanda kain ba si wu shujin ma ten yo ani chi pi khong tu sa gi shong ke che chama ma dang yo ngon tan pe ma se yak bu ji du sra di chin shu yin sra
Geshe have spent years on studying scriptures from fully qualified, excellent lamas, and in receiving also different transmissions, oral transmissions, explanatory transmissions, guiding transmissions, and so forth. Geshe now has the opportunity to also pass on some of those teachings to others. So this text that we are studying now, Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, is a great text. So looking at the text that we study at the moment, which give us instructions for practice, we study the Middling Lamrim, and this text, Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun. So the extent of the presentations of these two texts, the Middling Lamrim and Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, is exactly right for us. Not too extensive and not too brief. Also, they do not go into points that could be really complicated and confusing for someone that is at the beginner level, so to speak, because sometimes we do take points up in debate in relation to in some of the texts that we study, and some of the points can be rather complicated. So those two texts that we've been studying for the last few months are right for us in terms of their extent and also in terms of the presentation. So the presentation of the key points here is very clear, and as such, this is a really good text to study. It's a great opportunity to study something like that.
Now, dinzata tanganzugi kar dewarta devan deguyor dungan deguyor maros ta deva drupta dunga sedangi tachi tablam ta seshu and dinanal denyores ra ta degi yonsa zo dodi semba sambo semlele sem sambo yobaina degi yongodas dinganzu suyin degurata chöke lengi jimbaina tin deguyore chöke melengi jimbaina ya degi degros sem sambo ani pigi chamze chinjin baina tela gashendi ani chöke lengi melengi chamolo yorwas ro peno tondro jimba baina ya pa chik chambu ani yak chebaina su gawchi gdos ro tinza di kordata chanzanji ani lojon dinamala ya son yores.
And also these two texts include quotations from the great classics in order to show that there is a source for those instructions. So we use this text and we use that in keep in mind that all of us are seeking happiness and well-being, and none of us wants to experience suffering. And the way to accomplish that is presented here in a clear fashion. So the way to do it is to develop a kind heart, to develop a good mind or a kind heart, to develop a relaxed state of mind, which then will bring happiness and well-being. So if you are someone who is following the Dharma in the sense that you accept the Dharma, or if you're someone that does not do so, still, one thing that is common to all of us is the wish to be happy, to be well, regardless of the spiritual affiliation that we have. All of us wanting. Not only us as human beings, also when you look at other living beings, animals, you can see that they're just the same in that when you look in general sense, when you look at how we treat animals, for example, in general, if we treat an animal kindly, with a sense of affection, with a sense of ease, Geshe reckons that it will respond, that the animal will respond to that and also feel kind of more inclined towards you, or more kind of happy or calm in your presence.
Terda da magiba yongya di ji sem magibna ta kibu mado asro chagen khariyo bayna ya semba kibu mena ani ko kibu mado as da dingan zu nyongyo chogora ta semba magib ya zu di chagdang shukche ondi chagdang monsom ani ji chagdok densem o duzu shukche ondi teni rangshi gi ani semba di magiba ji yungdo as ta di shidang grimba di ani chamnyenji chanju sem lojong cheni ani machi chak thugwa na ta gyasa gyatang bata ani yam pere meba chi yungu yorwas dinza di grimba di dina chansang chi pe masiba yakbu sungu dosra.
And then conversely, when we look at unhappiness, a mind that is unhappy means that we ourselves are unhappy. And we know that based upon our own personal experience, we can see that. And our unhappiness arises under the influence of anger, attachment, and ignorance, the three poisons. And also other afflictions such as jealousy and competitiveness and so forth. Then we can see how these states of mind contribute or are making ourselves and others unhappy. So we train it loving kindness and compassion, bodhicitta. So these states of mind decrease, and also commensurate with that, loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta increase.
Odireta dinza ta dini nganzu ta chi yudu dan tsamba chiki ro yudu dan tsambi gi chöchik mena ani chö khanda chik ani sabo da yakbu yimba yana ya ani phya khabu chagoras dinza danda ta yonra gi jawrum chiki ani chö da mandri bi ani labsha se chik tanyin ti surt karni songo yoras da dig tanyen di jon dinala meba ina ya dig tenda chansang di ani sangores dinan sangores ro chöda mandribi labsha khandachi lengu yemedi chöda mandribi labshi gi tyen khari imbati ani chansan sangores dina.
And as such, this text is suited to this place and time. So this is also something that we need to think about. We need to study something that is suited to this point in time, to this place in time, because if you don't make sure that the teachings that are given are suited to the place and time, even if what is taught is profound and extensive, it's not going to be of benefit to the people receiving those teachings if it's not really suited for them. So Izanis often speaks of teaching teaching things with a contemporary approach, and teaching them on a secular level. So although this text is not really called a secular text, still when you look at the things which are included in this text, Geshe reckons that all the meaning of these secular approach to happiness and well-being is included also in this text.
Terda benanganzo chuke melengi jimbaina chuke lengo marda kana domba songorslana na rumardi ko pita chulugji ton ma songoras shegorada kana ji chechong marslabana kajin nga rawan yoras lagurada odiris ina kanangi ani ji tindi masheba chechine bena ani tsewa singi di kechimure mars kejitibana chuke melengi 남주 영이 미지기 야자야담바 개침부 통그러스 아니 비다 셔럽로 아니 셔럽도 남지기 셔럽 아니 딱지치니 아니 소주 접den이 거야 드지 남샤도서 아니 최케 meleng이 민남주 진진바이나 야자야담바 샘는 도그러스 디 팽그러스로 더디리 딘자 아니 지 잠바단 제비 토니 로디 짱 투바이나 아니 랑기 쳔디 디기야 티톤인 드윙고리 쳔치마 켈랭게 마란게노 치미기 데두이나 티톤인 드브고레스 어 디리제다 촐라 마데미 산초세디 아니 수 샘그톤인 드단치 디레샤스 인지미 피글야지 까담 치치너로 초담 저거 산삼 샤진 디나로연 주치고이나 란싱기 피글야지 아니 가서 다지 담댕이 소로식 로 아니 고향 매교로 책도 따디마인바 아니 닌지 로존당기 톨라연 로바이나 란싱 고향지 로고다스라 고향지 디토니 아니 추그 냠네 집이 추르에 슈그 고든 찬산디 디토는 드비운 거레스 이제 디디나 시우 쇼지 송고도스라
So in relation to this text also can be regarded as a text containing secular instructions. Like, for example, if someone is not accepting the Dharma in the sense that they do not see themselves as a Dharma practitioner, if you tell them that they need to guard ethical discipline, it's not going to make them happy. If you tell them that they're not allowed to perform or to do certain actions, they will probably respond in saying that I have the freedom to do whatever I want. So then if you talk to them about loving kindness or concern for others, Geshe reckons that regardless of their spiritual affiliation, even if they don't see themselves as Dharma practitioners, they will see the importance in a sense of care for others, in developing loving kindness towards others. If you ask them, is it important? Geshe reckons that certainly 100% certainly that they will accept that concern for others is important. And similarly, with respect to the development of wisdom, which discerns between different phenomena, with the development of this analysis and investigation, the presentation of wisdom also would be 100% guaranteed, Geshe reckons, will be agreed upon by others. They will like this presentation, and also they will find it helpful. So loving kindness and concern for others is helpful, it's beneficial in terms of this life. And even if you do not accept the existence of future lifetimes, or if someone does not agree with the existence of future lifetimes, still, from my perspective, the development of loving kindness and concern for others is still going to be beneficial for them in future lifetimes. Other than that, if we don't approach it like that, if we just approach it in saying that this is how you need to behave, you need to abstain from such and such actions, a person is not necessarily going to be happy with this type of approach. Whereas with the development of attitudes like concern for others or compassion, we can see that the mind is made so much spacious with these practices. It is made more relaxed, more spacious. So then if we put such things into practice, we can see that all of those necessary points for putting it into practice are included within this text, and they are explained in a very clear fashion.
장딩 실샤베톤 demba shila jabe trambu shila jabe toni ani lojong dang ramba chik chago res ro tinza pena suzul ye neba china deba meba nanshi shenla ye neba china di mandriba matama jirwas ta shenla ye nutse pangya di shenla ye chamba gomya di chamzi gi ta shima dires ro
So, for example, developing love and care for others, in training a mind in the development of love and care for others, we do that in an honest way, in being truthful. Like, for example, if someone does something that we dislike and thereby it makes us unhappy, we can recognize it just as well when others are being harmed. They dislike that. So it wouldn't be right to harm others because they dislike it, just like we are not happy when we are being harmed. So this is a dishonest approach. Therefore, as the instructions go in this text, we should give up harming others.
dere denza tanganzu shenla ye nutse yongya genza zo ro di ani chagdang shukche sona ani shenla ye nutse ilaya tan juk jog das ro ta chagdang goya di neluk tomi toni ro ngobi neluk tomi toni drobaina chagdang gi lodi shukchong jogores ro chagdang goya gi chagdang gi nimbo zo di ani tomani tobi sherabdres dinza tombanin sayadi pichu namgi nelu karimba ti tolaya jebacheni nelu karimba de ngunzin tukbayna ani chagdang lo loba di ani mangangi man jonguyores tinza nelu sayadi injimi chukinlen gomugo kejmaras sul shebayna ya nelu shebayna tensan zambulin ya ta nelu shebadi shiojigbe ani 미참이기 통칭부 지고로서 진짜 아니 더 로존 디 아니 베 덴두던 tumba 로 어딘지 차고도 세 내가 두된 거에서 디 차고 그랬어
And when we harm others, when we injure them, we do so due to the strength of anger and attachment. They cause us to inflict injury upon others. So then when we look at ways of dealing with anger and attachment, we can see that when we understand the way that things exist, when we see the reality, see the way that they exist, anger and attachment naturally abate. They lose their power. So in order then to develop an understanding of reality, we need to study emptiness. What is the reality of phenomena? What is the way that phenomena exist? So the more you look at the way that phenomena exist, if you think of the way, if you understand the way that phenomena exist, anger and attachment will naturally abate. So to understand the way that things exist in reality is not a religious matter. It's not that only if you're a religious practitioner, you will do that. Everyone can see reality. Not only that, you can say that also now in the way that things go in this world, we can see that everyone values an insight into reality. And this presentation agrees with this approach.
텔딘자다 간지 디 로존 디기로 비기 잠년지 잔주고 셈려야 다 간지 닌지 셈려야 잠비 셈려야 로존 약부지 여봐 아니 비기 최남지 내룩 비 제약 돌려야 남주 약부지 여봐나 다 넘버 산지비 쇼니 시비 처번 남다 차드샤스 텔 인지 민지 비 다지 출루 요거야 좋아 돈발랭 거야 딘디기 균zen 슈슈 차문도스 로 디 딘디지 토는 로토바나 고양부 슈지 토네 로 소소 갑깔에 양안도 다지 소소래 출루저디 출루디기 지 초라판 자니 아니 신 야와 도야 딘디기 상로 땡땡 당한 라 용기어라스 어 디메바 고양부 쇼지 토니 로투도 단 로야도 asra an big mixing chulu cheta baji sozule chulu cheta maji mebaina ani chulu khanda jimbaina tel ya chi legbi cha kari yemedi ta thugela kabkola ya pendo hingu yasar khazanga mejitosa kol chulu kai mesa ine kon nambala gagu nambi chi keju tan dili shigu tuzupen nandugus hindu la gagu cook hindu chi chilaus tingi hakumasra ina hindu toni dishe dili chaninga pe gagus o dilinga lausa ko posa lotion shunju ngoni dili reshasra.
So then with the development of loving kindness and compassion, the technique for developing love, you find those techniques in these texts. And likewise, when you study the way that things exist, when you study reality, you can become based on the combination of the development of loving kindness and an insight into reality, you can become a perfect practitioner. Often we have that idea to become a perfect or really good practitioner, then you need to go through certain rituals and take upon yourself vows and so forth. But here, when you look at this presentation, you can see that actually to become a really good practitioner, what you need to do is to develop loving kindness, compassion, and an insight into reality. So if you do that, if you take that approach, then you become a good practitioner. So it's good to keep that in mind, because sometimes we develop an attitude which is biased, in which we think that this is what we need to do to become a religious or spiritual practitioner, and we start then to discard others or to disregard others. So this is not the right approach to take. We need to make a mind more vast, more extensive, and also to see that even if someone is not a religious practitioner, a Dharma practitioner, still they can take from these teachings what they need to take in order to improve the mind, to make the mind vast and extensive, without having to see themselves or to accept themselves as Dharma practitioners. So this is a practical approach. Geshe met recently a younger guy that said that he doesn't accept religion. He does not see himself as religious practitioner, but still it says that he accepts some positive sides to the Buddhist tradition, some positive points. And he said that just as well, there are some positive points, good points in the Hindu traditions. Also, it takes them on without having to see himself as a religious practitioner.
점된 디기 간주 고양 부직 가를 때니 차고래 어디 간주를 남된치 열었어. 다더니 아니 땅 간주 비기 점된 디 제수 주고인데 땅아 점된 디 진주기 있을지. 나스 비기 다직 니취 취기 남방 있을지. 아니 간주 디 균센데 체니 착신기에 그 소를 깎고려야 안 지금 나란도이나 가고래 딜이 차기도 왔어. 디 아니 점된 디기 제수 주비다 고대 마상 교치. 점된 디기 아니 대차 셰당 착도로서 디기 방샤손. 디기 매버치비 탑려야 쉬지된 로스. 당한도 디 제수 주치니 아니 착당 기약이 귤을 땅샤바이나. 되니 딱딱 아니 고도 교치. 차도도 왔으라. 어디래셨으라.
The Buddha, the Bhagavan, taught us the path for mental development. So for us as students of the Buddha, the Bhagavan, when we follow the Buddha, the Bhagavan, we take on the teachings on the Buddha, but if on that basis we give rise to anger and attachment, if our attachment and clinging increase as we see ourselves, as we think to ourselves, I'm a Buddhist practitioner, I'm a follower of the Buddha, the Bhagavan. If through that our attachment and clinging increase, then this is something that definitely we do not need to have this type of approach. The path that the Buddha taught is a path for abandoning anger and attachment, jealousy, and other afflictive states of mind. The Buddha showed how to rid ourselves of these states of mind. So often we don't do that, but rather we use a spiritual identity, a religious identity, as a cause for anger and attachment. So this is something that is contrary to the teachings that the Buddha gave.
단단히 아직 죽은 데서 난 참된 대로 갈사. 결대 연딘 촉수 지구인 세들이 연딘 차시 쌈가식 나나원 텔라 초된도 감성 프로양 총원게 산지 춘초 끼비시 심전 나올라 예배나 근데 다기 차더니 심진 쳐버리 버린 결세들이
이게
더잖아.
All right, so going back to the text, we're going to pick up on the following point. Do you know which page it is in the printed book? 53. Okay, page 53. Thank you. Anyway, around page 53. All right, so Geshe picked up from this quotation that says it's the same text that refers to Shantideva's Gata Bodhisattva way of life. So it says, even if in order to pay respect for someone in whom a mere portion of good qualities of the unique collection of excellence exists, we were to present the three realms, it would be insufficient.
That did that that 최종 코랑 돌이야 잔 순고라스 먼저다 잔주그 셈 순고의 잔주그 셈기 잔주 되고라다 잔주 공반디 되기 잔주 공반 드기 잔주 공반디 아니 드고요나 아니 차긴 가르고레스라디 아니 심진래야 아니 잠바곰 고그레스 심진래 닌지 공고그레스 아니 심진래야 아니 시구르치고 그레스 어딘들 때니 다 연구연자 심진디 다지 최빅네 다 초도 겨바드리스 어디 도도 데렌도스 심진 최저 리버린 규스.
What Shantideva says in this text is referring to those who seek enlightenment. If you practice bodhicitta and therefore you strive at enlightenment, enlightenment is what you are striving to accomplish. Your object of attainment or accomplishment is enlightenment. What you need to do in order to attain that state is to have love for all sentient beings. You need to meditate on love for all sentient beings. You need to meditate on compassion for all living beings. You need to respect all sentient beings. And therefore, sentient beings for you become a supreme object of practice. And this is what this text says.
shesos simjin jebar sondi tedagi pende drubale ngondongile telteni yungres simjin yawa towale gobatamje tamandiba dongatamje telteni jongor sondi chanju semjele jigden dendro ngandro yi dedam menden jebati simjin lanen pembada nobalenin jong gurs simjin tena sangi gi komban lame ni girna hadame yilonjoga sangdan wangdan chapotan jigden gyongyi ten teda simjen pemba tsamshiki madrambani rosumde gaya meba tsarchiye semnyi tundro yedasu dunga namba tumingu simjen namji nyongwaka ten simjen nili chong chegam penzu degbatan sewa yin dunga nyi dobar kashin se meti simjen nubin dewu she song sos.
So the next verse in Shantideva's text says, since all sentient beings have a portion of Buddha's supreme qualities, for this reason alone, sentient beings are worthy of respect. It is said that accomplishing the welfare and happiness of sentient beings gives rise to higher status and definite goodness, whereas every kind of trouble arises from neglecting sentient beings. In his commentary on the awakening mind, Nagarjuna states, in this world, pleasant and miserable existences are desired and unwanted results that arise respectively from helping or harming sentient beings. Should you rely on sentient beings, you will gain the unsurpassable, fully awakened state. There is not a single person in the three realms who has not taken rebirth as Brahma, Indra, or Vishnu, the protectors of the world, solely through helping sentient beings. What could be more marvelous than that? The many types of suffering experienced by sentient beings as hell denizens, animals, and hungry spirits arise from harming sentient beings. The miseries of hunger and thirst, eating one another, and being overwhelmed by pains that are unrelenting and difficult to avoid are the results of harming sentient beings.
데리다 대바 멤버 강사기 심진 야로 톨베스 대바 멤버 비기다 녀란 다좀로 소바 디디다 까와 망부리네야 아니 지까지 둘이 개고라스 이네 까지 둘이 개는 타만 제부디 니치위 찬주 싸움을 마도 무토야 가르레스 싸움로 땅땅 데스 개총자레스 어디선 거라스라.
Then it says a person of the low vehicle does not attain even a full part of awakening. So here it is referring to hearers and so to realize the ahats who practice for a long duration, undergoing different difficulties, and yet they still attain just a portion of good qualities, a portion of full awakening. So you might wonder, why is it that they attain just a portion of awakening or a portion of enlightenment? Well, it is because they are bereft of this attitude as mentioned here.
마토진 chanju tsamle ma토진 대번 초기 리진기 현재바 송외 라나메비 chanju ngonde zede tenyele 심전 남라 차드와 도시엔 베베 빵월차 년된 남네 차드비 chanju 멤버 토멘남 심전 용수 마토르비 조산지기 chanju토 대들 팬더맨 뱀비 레벨 정원 제바나 대다 끼지찌기 대다 끼지찌기안니 randyun chashin chidarni shesos.
A person of the low vehicle does not attain even a part of full awakening because he neglects sentient beings, whereas the follower of the great vehicle, since he is deeply concerned for others, actualizes unsurpassable Buddhahood. The same text says you should vigorously reject as if it were poison, a lack of affection for sentient beings. Since hearers lack such a feeling, won't they attain an inferior enlightenment? As those who never completely forsaken sentient beings will attain the enlightenment of complete awakening, how could those who examine the results of harming or helping others remain attached for a single instant to their own welfare?
다다 디마 수분 다다 뇌시든 하위스 나런 솔야치 아니 뇌시 용데 티티 순거라 다다 뇌시든 하위 심젠된 남 토메네 랑기 뉴문기 녜렌 제발 때네 총바레스 랑리 토메네 제누 치비 레기 힌지 치기 치비 왕기 뇌신 드다기 삼방엠베 권을 하위 조신줄로 타부 만두 좀이 균생기 아니 칠 코발야 타메 제랑 안로 남수 동안 하소 녀이 녜네 란자를 투바인데 파바시발이 샬니 레기 다기 꿀진네 달라 뉴제 남총데 대심진 냐도나 다기데다 말라캄 셰소스.
The harm sentient beings presently appear to be doing us, that refers to harm doers, is fundamentally caused by the disturbing emotions in our own mind streams of a beginningless time. The auxiliary conditions are the tendencies remaining from actual harm we have done against sentient beings of a beginningless time. Due to the activation of such causes and conditions, those who harm us motivated by evil thoughts, for which reasons they engage in numerous cruel and misguided acts against us. In general, throughout limitless cyclic existence, the blame for our experience of various miseries, such as those of the 3 bed rebirths in particular, rests with our self-centered attitude. As the exalted Shantideva has said, having been provoked by my actions, harm befalls me. If by their involvement sentient beings are thrown into hell, am I not destroying them?
일단 디나노라야 칙직라야 지르코발라 타메세지 로 칙지도 다디 디십자를 제바나 지르코 타델야 니샤워라스탄 토미 타다 타민타니 니나는 지르코발라 타메세디 토미 타미스 자르고레스 타미타 코알레트로나 코벤타 조바로스 타민타 유스 토미타 메스 dindri lago.
Now, one point to pull out from this section says in general throughout limitless cyclic existence. So the word limitless is joined together with cyclic existence. It says that samsara is limitless. So then we can look at the two ends of samsara. In relation to the beginning end, samsara is limitless. There is no point of beginning. And therefore we say since beginningless samsara. But then with respect to the end of cyclic existence, samsara does have an end. It is beginningless, and yet it still has an end.
Tadini takanri samtangor sek churujre khabar tada ranja theba chimbi chugi goshubi kapsus dadagi gonhatso ne nebatoma chibi theba chimbi chugi parchi chibi wanki chin khorwe dongar chara dongan song to sholshe beba ngandru dongar temi ne dukwa niriji nyamdu samshi jenya nejendi dagi macheba tangi meche dagi kyoki shasu tangtong ribamur bagba kyomba tang deba che nojon tongwa sana tongsum gi nudu chungka chuka sebatan gyabatan chokbadyan tangi mocheba che te tamchi yi chelendang lencha korwa dari kyola wang dala we kadin che nyamdu samba che de miki kani tongne niki kone chamnyenji kyabardu nujela teni sobe shichibi parudu chumba chukya tela teni jondi nujeti sobe yuyimbi soba gom soba yona parudu chumba ni di ngundu sonla sum tela teni parudu chumba chukti shawasara jongi sos.
And then it says, now especially when we are entering the door of the great vehicle teachings, these beings harm us in many ways, because they thereby create obstacles for themselves to enter the great vehicle doctrine. They will experience the sufferings of cyclic existence in general and the 3-bed rebirths in particular. We should feel compassion for the becoming vessels for the manifold sufferings of the bed rebirths. Moreover, those who are harming us have in fact been our mothers countless times before. We have eaten their flesh, drunk their blood, gnawed their bones, and worn their skins times beyond number. If all the milk and curd we have drunk were gathered together, a vessel of the size of the 3 worlds would not contain it. The times we have killed, beaten, and robbed them also cannot be counted. We have taken the kindness for granted on all those occasions, and now should repay our debt to them, thinking, remembering your kindness, this is my duty. Singling out those we apprehend as enemies, we should enhance love and compassion by means of both giving happiness and taking on suffering. We should particularly rely on those who harm us, since they provide a basis for us to practice patience. Even the 6 perfections arise from relying on them. Because these foes are objects of forbearance, of patience, we can meditate on patience, of one of the 6 perfections. If we have patience, the two perfections of generosity and ethics will have preceded it, and the other three, effort, meditative stability, and discriminating intelligence or wisdom, will be derived from relying on it.
Tön korki na yul teda sangi laktır tu tenkin yimbes
And then it says, when we let our thoughts turn over the significance of this, we will realize that objectively it is our foes who, it is our foes who place enlightenment in the palms of our hands.
그래서 대단한 체가와 침비샬니 다음 온된 자연롱 뉴무 기비 연남라 게시 임보 순통아 메데 칸나 내잔데 셰솜바터 랍고데스 베나 켄럽기 dombo 포베 타와드 탐지 김비 귤손니 첸체와터 델라테니자 조바졸라 티 찬주 침비 규규비 아니 카톡 좋아 제 마부서들 인데 존중리 대외감에 머드버 김도 때는 종원들 잔주주비 조교와 달라다기 가버쳐 제당 강다달라 카스름 제연 네버 제범 대신 치과 동여로 탐지 잔주 까딩규 시송소스
The great Chekhov expressed it like this: whether they are our enemies or dear ones, all are the objects of disturbing emotions. Seeing everyone as a spiritual friend will bring happiness even when you're alone. We should practice just as he had advised. For instance, the spiritual preceptor is extremely kind because he bestows the vows that are the causes for us to attain liberation and omniscience. Our enemy too is like that, because by relying on him, we can perfect patience, which is a cause of great enlightenment. This is like the saying, don't spit out delicious food once it is in your mouth. The guide to the Bodhisattva ways of life says, therefore, like finding treasure in my house without any effort on my part, I should be delighted that my enemy becomes my friend in my efforts for enlightenment. And also Shantideva says, when anyone abuses me, or even when others do harm to me, when they afflict me in such ways as where is it? Sorry. When they afflict me in such ways as this, may they all have the fortune to gain enlightenment.
yang chagawa chimbishalni pentak lendu nöje kya yanle nyinji chenpo goms zambalingi kencho ni nibi lenya lebrandun shesos.
And also the great Chekawa has also said, even when hurt is offered in return for help, respond by meditating on great compassion. In this world, this superior man will accept such misfortune while leading others to go to goodness.
nganzu kondro mangshu ro di kondro dokshu ro di pa yagbu chin tsu jik dukja ro cheba na ane same thing ni kondro sai chik yungu dos ta di karis na nyumuki ro nyumuki kanji nganzi shuk chi tame wanki ro ranjinzi shuk chi tame wanki yungu yosares ro diyan chik chaba kang cheba di suzu lai chik kepsan chik tuyandu cheba ina Then, Papentaba digi Sadigi, Tsutis Mandiwa Chona, and the similar Pobushuchik. Hasna, Reva Jambaji Gavin Chioras. That didn't Reva Kaim Tony, Pajomale, Pento Korang Tony, and his Samlutani, Chetu Yobaina, and Tsu Yalen Tejanro, Matejanro, Kazi Yalen Dujas Jabaina, and Gyobaski Yomaras. Gyoba made it Sambala, Condroside, Nyon Rosaris. 아니 니지 그다 야도 싱문도 삼성 니지 검투에 디 연구였어랬어.
So this point is relevant to how we respond to a certain situation. You can say that we get very angry. The worst type of anger arises when someone whom we've been very kind to does not return a kindness, but is harming us. This is a situation where we get often very angry. So when we look at how we respond with anger to a situation where we expect someone that we have helped before, someone that we have benefited, someone that we were very kind to, responds in harming us, if we respond with anger, it is a response that is based on an attitude of self-cherishing and also our afflictions. We become disappointed. We become disappointed on account of our self-cherishing or our afflictions when we have certain expectations that the person that we are helping or benefiting will respond in kind. So rather than having such expectations, if we're going to benefit others without expectations, without hoping that they will respond in kind, then we will get less angry if they don't reciprocate the benefit that we have given them. If they harm us in return without having any expectations for being treated well, we will become less angry. Not only we will have less anger, also we will feel compassion for that person. We will meditate on compassion or train in compassion in thinking that that person is in a pitiful state. They don't really understand what they're doing.
대단도서 배야고다 야고 매교도 요말단도서 쇼 계신부 가서 가서 땀에 마무지기 로망 비기기 아니 대바치 비추 장바라왔어 나다가다 로망부 쇼 추 장기 비커라다 이나야 아니 냠내 마투디 아니 야렌리아 뉴젤리아 닌지 kom야다 소보 kom세디 각부 빼도왔어 다 디기 아니 소수기 냠내 세다마즈나 가주슬레비아버디다 시우슈지 통토사라다 로 츠 아니 파 펜도체니 디랜레야 뉴시 땅원디 딜레야 소보 가주스 컴투도 인지 가주스 컴투도 디 소수 뇽이 tro그라다 어 델데네다 아지잉에 단다버도 로마 디르레야 이 냠네 지우 크인다 단다 정지야부 테문도 삼니 아니 라지 트바이나 아니 양자 슈갸야야 펜도용 서로스로
So then when we look at this section and the section that deals with someone that we have benefited before responds to that in harming us, we can use that as an assessment of our practice. So such instructions, first of all, is a good instruction. It's not that there's something bad or not right in this instruction. It is a good instruction. So for example, some of us might have been practicing the Mahayana path for a few years. Like for example, Geshe says that when he thinks about it in relation to himself, he has been studying and practicing it for many years now. But still in thinking that he's been practicing it for a long time, for many years, when he looks at the way that he responds to situations where someone is harming him, he can see that his practice is not really sufficient, not adequate. So particularly when we experience those scenarios, those situations where someone is harming us after we have harmed that person, particularly in this situation, we should meditate on compassion towards that person. We should meditate on loving concern towards that person. So how have we been doing it so far? If we see that we haven't really done it so far, then we can think that because we haven't been doing it so far, practice haven't really bear the right fruit. It hasn't been fruitful so far because we have neglected to include this practice of compassion and care for someone that responds in harming us to us benefiting them. And we should also think that therefore henceforth I should make more effort in cultivating compassion and care for such a person.
Terda nöshilaya penta lendu nöshikyan yane ninji chimbo goms da tsu neba chingi dilaya da ninji kandaji gom gore samsung da di kayo mar da yungur was pena sobo gom gore slawandi sobo gom gore slana da mambuji gita sobo gom gore slana da gyonki gore sevi sorsi kodeyala soba da ninji gom gore sladi ninji kandaji gom gore dindi yungur was da ra tezo re dindi yungur was da.
So when the great Chekawa says, even when hurt is offered in return for help, respond by meditating on great compassion. We might be thinking, what does it mean? How do we do that? Is it that we just take on abuse by others? Is that the meaning of this practice? Here, Chekawa says that we should respond by meditating on great compassion.
Pena nöshe dilaya ninji gom webi wechi mansambayna ninji gomne ninji kolok sengdi chagiros. Teza danganzo namgi ninji seg samlo dilawandi dagaran tenni ta ani gom shingo da namgi ninji sedi katab kyowu rawan megyo ani chik kimutunge o dindijilaya ta ninji seg lodi ngangi legdos dindiji tombanda ninji samsung lodi legdos ta nöshe di ya rama meba di Geshe gyatamares nöshe di chakdang gi shawan songchini ani neba chigiyor mato chakdang mengi jigi neba tsawanyin chigmares tenzi tako aka chakdang monsong shawan kyurbarewa samsung loch lebayna ngangi ta ninji samsung ninji komya di yungu yosares ra.
So when Chekawa says respond by meditating on great compassion, when we think of the cultivation of compassion, if we cultivate compassion to someone that is not worthy of compassion, it would be a misguided compassion. So how then do we meditate on compassion towards a harm doer? When someone is harming us, when we cultivate compassion towards the person, we come to see the person in a pitiable situation. They have no freedom. They have no freedom and they're acting in a way that creates problem to them. So when you think of that person in that pitiable situation and having no freedom, naturally a sense of compassion will arise towards that person. A harm doer does not have a sense of independence because they are controlled by anger and attachment. And being under the sway of anger and attachment is not that they have freedom or independence. So when you think of how that person doesn't really have freedom, they're under the control of anger and attachment, naturally compassion arises with respect to that person.
Tadirida sobagom yadiya sobagom sedi ani sem chuk majuk seg sem kongtru shamand mashurba chese tiredos ra anzul jig neba cheba na lamsan kongtru sayach ra kongtru sasinamaz na sem chuk droyach ra sem bedi ani gyudroyach ra hen thodroyach hen thor sondi deni ani pi nguyu nisun tomatoyach ledrodos o disungoda da ganji ani pigilaya ji ken karda tebayna ya susu sem de chuk mashabayna teni nujigi matugech ro susu sem de chuk shabayna teni pamya nyarchi changroech ro ninji gomaduna susu pam rogore sobo gomaduna susu pam rogore mado ani 캡산 셴바가 캐로요 말이스 캡산 디 수수 경라 인거라스 그래서 년주 검토 봐야나 네버 땅나야 아니 팬디 드바데 찍바 소소라야 팬도 드바데 찍바도지 어 딘디기 삼로다니 드로트바이나 데네 팬도 베용구야 사레스
So then you might wonder, how do I practice patience in that situation when I'm being harmed? Well, to practice patience means that your mind does not become agitated. It does not become disturbed. So when we look at our reaction to being harmed by another person, we immediately get angry. And when we immediately get angry, it means that we're being agitated, that our mind becomes agitated or disturbed. Our mind is in shock. Now we're in shock for being harmed by another person, and we respond to that with anger. So if you think of not allowing your mind to be disturbed, not allowing your mind to be agitated, in which you think that if my mind becomes disturbed when I experience that harm, then I will be defeated. It means that the harm is already there, but on top of that, my mind is agitated, my mind is disturbed, and therefore I am defeated in this situation. So indeed, if you don't practice compassion, if you don't practice patience in such situations, you will be defeated and you will not get any benefit from those situations. Whereas if you do cultivate compassion in those situations or patience, you will get benefit from those situations. And therefore, you can say that due to that harmdoer harming you, you get a benefit. There's some benefit or happiness that can be derived from that situation, and therefore that harmdoer can also be regarded as someone that is helping you.
대דר 종시나스 딘디기 삼탄시나 소가 대דר 종시나 빠 룰라 여나 chen tanla kyam shebaum renchen lina china kigingi do meni sevatar lo mojong wi tu meba chik onde chugin do chikbu di imbe diona michikbola chuchikbo chuchikbola kochobo she sevatar yin den de taw chik kona chugi mingchang chugi ming chanju semjong shiso chike takjan chokdi belhamola mingya malan sandoma kane pyojan kyoji min kane takjan kyoji tsen shebatar yinde langri tambi shangane dusum gyawa gibi yum sumjen lan jawa shiso sonke sa.
After the quotation from Geshe, it says, if we understand how to train our minds in this way, then just as we could wander across a plain of swords if we had physical courage, or journeying to the mythical Jewel Islands, which we would need to seek no stones to throw at the vicious dogs. So a period will come when there is no time, when we do not train the mind. This is the single meeting point of all teachings. If you have that, it is like the saying, one doctrine for one man, and that one teaching is purposeful. Thus, since it has one purpose, you can call the doctrine the practice of the awakening mind, or whatever name you like, as saying goes about Pandan Hamo. 100 named lady with 1,000 characteristics, by whatever name we invoke you, that is your name. However we imagine you, those are your qualities. And also Langling Tampa said, recognizing sentient beings as the mothers who give birth to the conquerors of the three times.
Yang kongi shalne chanju ki sem simjen la teni kewala Chiji mongi madi sevi tsurdu kanan dukyan shen re miksul madeni ti lo lamba che nyamba ti sanji yu yu madewa son yin sonke shen jibal zibi penyo dan ran jibal zibi nyemi dordu de paba shivali shani katsal de mandu shedan 지시고 제베랑기 된제든 통바신기 된제번 등이 긴켜와 되시소 대들 레버 싸움에 란진진이 니바 탐지기 종공 신진진의 연된 탐진 종 통네 대차유 숨진 판신 두바 이용기 넘버진도 로제데 대나란 진전의 신야월도 로니 고서 포종기 받은 배버자데 다시 지비출 dordu jusendos.
He also said that Geshe Lang Tampa, the awakening mind is generated in dependence on sentient beings. But like the saying, whatever you do when wearing an iron helmet is unpleasant. To entertain such thoughts that wherever you are, you feel vexed when encountering other beings who displease you, it is like being unhappy with the causes of enlightenment. The exalted Shantideva also concisely stated the advantages of being concerned about others and the faults of selfishness. What needed is to say more. The childish work for their own benefit, the Buddhas work for the welfare of others. Just look at the difference between them. Thinking about this deeply, we should see that all faults arise from selfishness, whereas all good qualities come from benevolence towards others. This means that we should be concerned about sentient beings, should be fond of them, and think of them with affection. Therefore, we should keep up our efforts until our thoughts of concern for others and neglect for others have changed places. This concludes my brief account of how to exchange self and others. Should we leave it here for today?
Boss kangaleda konzekejitna. Boss
Yeah.
konzekejitna.
Yeah. So we have now like 3 big bosses here. So is it no? So we have Ruby, Leonie, Claire. So is it all right that we leave now? Do you agree that we could leave the session now? Do we get permission? You can have a vote, a secret vote. All right, let's do some dedication prayers. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Several of the Snow-Land teachings and transparent great beings who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You uphold the Sibyur's moral way who settles the manifold bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majjhima's victorious doctrine, who mercifully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the 3 jewels. Several of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you.